Okay.
Also, just to say a few words of introduction for our speakers this morning. Jasmina Tešanovic and Bruce Sterling are our guests this morning, and both of them are going to speak. Jasmina, she's a writer, a journalist, a musician, and I cannot say entrepreneur, right? Because Jasmina is also an enterprise.
Yes.
And Bruce Sterling is a science fiction writer, a futurist, a consultant, an expert in design and digital technologies. And both of them are going to talk about the Internet of Things from their own specific and peculiar point of view. And I also look forward to listening to them when they talk about this topic, like any other topic actually. Thank you, welcome.
Great. So, thanks for having us. Internet of Things, a big topic for us. So yes, I'm Bruce, and this is a book, or a pamphlet, that I wrote a couple of years ago called Epic Struggle of the Internet of Things. And I've been very interested in Internet of Things issues and ubiquitous computing for many years. So I am a novelist, but I'm also a technology journalist, and I write for Wired and Technology Review and other kinds of magazines. So this was 2 years ago, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what has happened in the Internet of Things in the meantime. So if you're interested in my take on this, this is my blog on Tumblr, which is called Wolf in Living Room. And Wolf in Living Room is about the Internet of Things in the home. It's about the impact of the IoT, as they call it, the Internet delle Cose, in domestic life. And that's a particular interest of both Jasmina and myself. We're interested in what daily life, the lived experience of the Internet.
Okay.
Right. So on this weblog, I just take notes instead of keep track of trends. This is the Casa Jasmina project here in Torino, which is a project that Jasmina and I both work on as kind of Internet of Things open source activists. And it's named after Jasmina because it was her idea. And it's over in the Torino Fab Lab next to the Arduino and Genuino office on Via Egeo 16 in glamorous South Torino. So drop by if you'd like to see our experiments in maker culture. And Jasmina will talk more about the house later, but I'm going to talk about trends and kind of the broad scale here. So what is the Internet of Things? Well, it's a slogan. It's a slogan, and it's meant to connect a lot of different players instead of saying, oh, well, we can do physical things on the Internet now. And so if you look at the slogan, this happens to be the C-Wave Consortium. The idea is that you get control of physical objects using broadband and wireless connectivity. So you can see how I can do it in the home, I can do it in buildings, I can do it in factories, I can do it in cities. And now I have all these sensors and all these gauges, and I pull in data from all these objects, and I can control them remotely, and I can put them all on my desktop, and suddenly I have this fantastic internet control system over all these objects, and now I can be more efficient, and I can make money, and I can reduce pollution, and I can build a smart city, and I can start a new company, etc., etc. Okay, that's sort of true, but that's not what actually is going on. This is what's actually going on. So instead of being like smooth and perfect, like everything controlled from one place, on the contrary, it's an epic struggle between dozens of different methods of trying to put things on the internet, hiding things from the internet, putting on some things, using certain kinds of ways of controlling different kinds of sensors. Basically, it looks like this. I mean, it's not that you can't put things on the internet. It's like there's too many ways, right? It's just like too many different varieties, too many people trying to do it, a million startups. This is the IoT, one of many, what they call the ecosystem map. So just look at all these tiny little companies that are struggling in various aspects of what's called the Internet of Things, all right? Cities, cars, hospitals, fitness applications like monitoring your body, jewelry, smartwatches, you can see I've got one myself, agriculture even, tags, trackers, toys, and the home area, which emphasizes in particular. But even the home area has 145 companies, and you can see that if you write to this consultant here, Mr. Info Adventure Scanner, he'll tell you about the 812 other companies that aren't on this list. So, you know, it's really it's an epic struggle. It's not smooth and perfect. Everybody wants to be the sort of lord of the internet. Everybody wants to have the platform that the internet runs on. You can see there's at least 360 different competitors who think they can be the Internet of Things platform. And some of them are so obscure that you have to give these guys, IoT Analytics, $500 just to learn all their names. All right, obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you think you're the internet, and you're going to be the Internet of Things platform, how could you be so obscure that you're almost a secret, right? And but this is the way things are, you know, in these early days of the Internet of Things. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of companies and entrepreneurs and groups struggling over what seems like a lot of money. And it has not gotten much clearer in the years in which I have followed it. On the contrary, the struggle is getting quite a lot hairier. So even the big players, and this is Google, have had considerable troubles trying to move into the Internet of Things. Google, which has heaps of money, spent an absurd amount of money, what was it, $5 billion, I think, buying this startup company, Nest. And Nest, and they bought them about 4 years ago. So they started a Google at Home thing where they were going to put these Google connected Nest thermostats into everyone's home. It did pretty well for a while, and then for some reason, just quarrels broke out at Nest. The engineers began quarreling with the bosses. The people at Google's board of directors had just personal struggles with Tony Fadell, who was the guy running it. So he was fired. They haven't released any new products in almost 5 years. And it's become the biggest scandal in the Internet of Things space. And everybody's saying, "You're Google. You spent $5 billion. Where are the products? You said there was going to be a revolution. Where's all my stuff? All you do is quarrel and fight and fail." Okay, yeah. They quarreled, they fight, they fought, and they're failing. And this is Google, which has, unbelievable amounts of capital and brilliant engineers to throw at the problem. So that shows the difficulty involved in trying to do this stuff. Even in an object like a thermostat, which is really a pretty simple Internet of Things device. I mean, when you think about it, there's already thermostats in everyone's home, and their behavior as engineered objects is well understood. So you think, well, at least Google ought to be able to build a thermostat, but the result is like, no. Basically, they have political, management, and human resources problems, and it's just really a mess. And in the meanwhile, the technology is continuing to advance. So even if you have the idea of an Internet of Things, it doesn't stay still. Like, originally, the idea was that you would give things like an IP address so that the thing is on the internet. But that was done maybe 20 years ago and didn't seem to go very far. So maybe you could put some sensors on the objects, like a thermometer, and then it would be like a smart thermostat. It would be more interactive, and that seemed exciting. But then people thought, well, why don't I just put an entire computer in the device? I'll just turn my toaster into a computer, and my fridge into a computer, and my power into a computer, and my light bulbs will be a computer, and the computers are cheaper and cheaper. And that's thanks to a lot of advancement from guys like this. And this is a Arduino Yun here. Happens to be a Deadwood. But these are Turinese guys, and they've made, sold a couple of million of these worldwide. There's lots. And you can get a Raspberry Pi computer, which is a pretty good computer, for about $9. $5 if you buy a bunch of bulk. So in fact, it's not all that difficult to put a computer into an object. Like, I've got a computer in my pocket. Who would know, right? So computers and things is not that big a deal, but maybe I could put them on the network and then I could put apps and things. And I was like, okay, great. I could pull out my phone. Now I've got like my Internet of Things control device, and I'm like pulling up my app for my lights, and then I have my app for my car, and my app for my typewriter, and my app for my toaster. And pretty soon my fingers are getting pretty tired. So the new trend is AI in things, which is just talking to objects, or having them all controlled by a hub, like say Amazon Alexa, or Apple Siri, or Google Now, or Facebook M. So that's a pretty far idea. I mean, that's a pretty far stretch from the idea of putting things on the internet. I mean, to be talking to the cloud and having a voice recognition service doing all the work for you. I mean, you just, instead of pulling up the app, turn out the lights, you just say, Siri, yes, turn out the lights. Okay, that's, not only is that a different interface, that's actually a different technology. So, and it also very much favors the most powerful players, namely Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft, because they're the only ones who have clouds and the only ones who do have these vocal computing systems. So it may be that before the Internet of Things can actually be applied, it will be itself made obsolete by some other paradigm of ubiquitous computing that is coming up out of nowhere, AI and things. And you know, that's kind of actually typical of popular adaptation of computing. I mean, it always sounds high-tech and kind of dazzling and exciting and powerful, and it ends up as robot cat toys. You know, in much the way that the internet is all about cat pictures, you know, or pet controllers. Yeah, if things go on as they are, there will be robot cat toys. And you know, it sounds absurd. I mean, it's like, why would I give my cat a robot? Well, you know, if it costs $5 and it makes the cat happy, yeah, I mean, why not give your cat a robot? You know, I mean, why not, right? I mean, you have a Roomba already and that costs 500 euros. But if the price crashes by 2 orders of magnitude, which is not hard for computation to do, yeah, I mean, in fact, you could have Siri run the cat toy for you, right? Or just have Facebook entertain your cat, right? Because it's got broadband, right? And there's plenty of computational power in the Amazon cloud. It wouldn't be hard for the Amazon cloud to entertain your cat really effectively. And you know, how much would you pay for that? Well, I don't know, 50 cents or something? And it's the same cat entertainment algorithm that's already been written. So, you know, it's important to sort of understand that these technologies end up infiltrating daily life. They're not just about the big companies, they're not about the smart cities, they're not about science fiction novels. They get really humble, right? A kind of huge math for trivia. And Petronix actually exists. I mean, this is a real company. They're a startup company, and they're really trying to make robot cat toys. These are the early days. All right, there's a lot of money in cat toys, a lot of cats. What are you going to do here in Italy? Okay, well, you know, in Europe, it's all about European initiatives. I mean, the EU's quite keen on the Internet of Things. If you're into that, you can go look it up. But you can see that there's like stuff going on all over the place. There are all kinds of high-level efforts to do, like the industrial Internet of Things here. And if you are European, it's good to sort of keep up with these guys, just figure out what's going on. There's tons of them. They're all over Brussels. They're a little confused, but they know there's a lot of money in it. In Italy, we've got Fabbrica Intelligente. Yeah, sure. Go check them out. Google them. Internet of Things and Industry 4.0, sure, read the white papers, you know. It'll sound good when somebody hires you. Okay, now I'm going to conclude by ranking the top players in the Internet of Things, because I'm a journalist and I think it's an epic struggle. I really think it's a big competition. It's a frontier where everybody's trying to put down bets, outguess the other guys, and seize as much of the physical world as they can. the Internet of Things. It could be renamed the Cybernetic Consortia for Control of Property. Every one of these guys sees it as their own empire. And they call it the Internet of Things because that sounds peaceful. But it's just like normal competition on the Internet between, say, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and so forth. They're all on the Internet. They all use some of the same protocols. They can hire the same engineers, but they're also trying really hard to crush each other, drive each other out of business, and seize as much money and power as they possibly can. So this is my best guess on how things are going this summer. Okay? And I'm going to explain why I favor some and why I pay attention to others that don't rank them as highly. So, who's doing really well in the Internet of Things? Amazon. Amazon, for some reason, they had some terrible failures with like the Fire phone, which was just like a disaster. But they also are having a surprising success with Alexa, which is the most popular talking home cloud interface. So Alexa's selling a lot. And people are starting to work for Alexa, and Alexa's building its own little ecosystem of apps, which they call skills. And they're clever at Amazon, and they know how to sell consumer items, and they're really pouring a lot of smarts and energy into Alexa right now. And they also have some other items like the Dash button, which is an Internet of Things device which simply consists of a button. So you put the button, say, next to your washer, and when you're out of detergent for the washer, you just push the button, and it automatically contacts Amazon and buys some soap, and automatically sends you your soap, which someday will be delivered by a drone, kind of flown through the air and dropped through your window. And Amazon loves these buttons. They're very cheap. They'll give you the buttons for free. People are starting to use them for other reasons. It's an attractive interface. You don't have to do the apps or talk to stuff with Amazon. You just push the button, get the automatic consumer good. Or you talk to the device and say, Alexa, play me my Amazon music. Alexa, turn off the lights. Alexa, get me a pizza, whatever you want. So Amazon's model of the consumer Internet of Things is the only one that consumers actually like. They have struck gold here. They're becoming popular. So I rank them number one. Number two is Google, because they're smarter than Amazon, they're bigger than Amazon, and they're doing more ambitious stuff. Okay, Nest home automation didn't work real well, but Android is just everywhere. It's a very powerful operating system. The Google car is going to go somewhere. They have 1 million Google X projects that are very weird and disruptive. And they have the smart city thing, Sidewalk Labs, which is very politically connected. So I would rank Google number two. Number three, Apple at home. People like Apple. Apple's got tons of money. They're polished. They're kind of top end. They're going to be profitable. It's going to be basically rich people's houses. The way that Apple's basically rich guys' hardware. But it'll be, beautiful and polished and well designed, and it'll probably work. Number four, I would rank Xiaomi, because they're kind of young. They don't remember how things used to be, and they have the Chinese market pretty well sewn up. So they can use all the benefits of Chinese manufacturing, and they don't have to worry too much about copyrights or patents, because everybody in China is a pirate. So they have a very well-established list of consumer goods that all run through their systems, and Xiaomi's a player to be watched. Very wealthy. I mean, they're only 4 or 5 years old. They're colossally successful, a unicorn. Number five, Microsoft. They're kind of stupid, frankly. But they're struggling, and they've got lots of money. And they do have kind of some cloud initiatives that are kind of working. And business people like them, because they're dull. Number six, Facebook. They're not super interested in the Internet of Things, although Zuckerberg said he was going to turn his own house into an Internet of Things house, which is a sign that he wants to do something in the long run. But they're very good at hardware investments at Facebook, and people underestimate their technical chops. I mean, they've really built some interesting stuff, and they have just a crash investment stuff with this kind of applied machine learning, because they want to spy on everybody. And if they can spy on everybody, they can probably spy on all the objects too. So they're definitely a player. Plus they're rich. Okay, 7, Samsung, they've got Korea. I mean, they're basically a Korean chaebol. Mostly they make hardware, but they've got very good engineers. If you take Korea seriously, Samsung is a player. Number 8 fell off the face of the universe, I don't know why. Intel is the traditional maker of chips and hardware. They've been suffering a lot in the Internet of Things. They've just had to fire 10% of their personnel. Otherwise, they'd probably be number 1 because they're just better hardware engineers than anybody else. But they missed out on the cell phone revolution, and they're hoping to come into a new Internet of Things revolution. They've spent a lot of money on it. They have excellent R&D people. They're paranoid. They're tough. They're formidable competitors. They don't have very good software skills, but they're on up there. Okay, number 10 is IBM, an old-fashioned company, but they are very good politically, and they're involved in a lot of consortia, and they're very much trusted by governments. So, you know, they are a kind of middle-of-the-road player. General Electric is not somebody you would expect to be an Internet of Things player, but they're an extremely efficient industrial manufacturing enterprise. And they're very intelligent, very hard charging company, and they're doing some remarkable things like predictive calculation, putting instruments in heavy industry, jet engines, refineries, railroads, the industrial Internet of Things, as they call it. That's a very, very big sector, and they kind of dominate there. They're not going to do a whole lot of stuff in the home. They're trying to get out of their white goods business of refrigerators, light bulbs, and so forth. But they are ambitious and a visionary group and scary competitors. I mean, General Electric are ferocious. They're the oldest company here. I mean, they were founded by Thomas Edison. And for them to have remained alive for over a century and still be, you know, powerfully innovative industrial competitors is very impressive. Then there's Cisco. They used to run the internet, basically. They fell afoul of Facebook. Facebook actually attacked Cisco. Not many people know that. But Cisco, which used to be able to sell internet hardware, has been unable to keep up their profit margins. So they're trying to do things with the Internet of Things. They're in every consortium and every kind of group. They're very busy politically. They do a lot of smart city stuff. They're struggling to survive. Bosch is probably the top European competitor here. The Germans are very aware that they could be outflanked by Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. They're very good at industrial control systems and manufacturing control systems and machine style software. So they have a German-only consortium, which is kind of the European IoT standard, and they will fight to protect those standards. I mean, they're going to use every EU political trick or scheme that they possibly can to build moats around their unique capacity. They're going to struggle to protect the potency of German manufacturing. And they're just one among many, but Bosch is obviously the smartest and the most avant-garde among that group. And then there's the Japanese.
Sorry, so Siemens is not in the game? Siemens?
Well, and Siemens is a collaborator with Bosch. But I would say that Bosch is the captain and Siemens is the lieutenant. But I hear a lot from Siemens. They execute very well, but they just don't seem as aware of the threat as Bosch. Bosch is a lot more aggressive.
Because they're about the same age as General Electric, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they've been around forever and a day. And, they've shown tremendous staying power. I don't expect them to collapse, but they're very afraid that, if they lose control of the cloud or if somebody invents new methods of manufacturing, they could just be disrupted and sidelined, and that's a distinct possibility. I mean, General Electric certainly thinks they can do that. And then there's Hitachi, which is, a sad story. I mean, if you're as old as I am, you can remember when the Japanese dominated in electronics and like transistor radios. And you would think that an Internet of Things would be perfect for them, because really it's all about radios, and tiny little devices. And they used to be able to make miniature electronic components and connect them and Sony Walkman and so forth. And in the 8 days of analog electronics, they were just all over the world. And the Hitachi's kind of the last survivor there. They're the only major Internet of Things player, and they mostly try to concentrate on smart city stuff. They've been working a lot with Singapore. I could go on all day about how they lost their preeminence, but it's important to understand that when technology advances, it doesn't mean that everybody in that technology does well. On the contrary, if things are really vibrant, it tends to mean that a lot of companies are being killed by other competitors. And if you're in a rapidly advancing technology, the chance of you becoming obsolete is very high. So if you want to involve yourself in the Internet of Things, you have to understand there's going to be like a lot of blood on the floor, okay? And then number 15 would be the people that Jasmina and I adore and like to hang out with, who are these Arduino, Genuino, open source hardware, hobby, academic, maker seed, Raspberry Pi, weird art style, crafty, maker electronics people. And we're not business people, we don't work for Arduino, Casa Jasmina's not our job, it's more of our missione. But we are activists in this realm, and because we just want to do it for moral reasons, basically. I mean, we feel like these are the kind of people we would be happiest with, and the ones who kind of are on our side. And we're interested in electronic art, technology art. These are the kinds of just artisanal electronics, and in that area. I think you could say that Italy actually dominates. There's not a whole lot there, but there's kind of more of this small-scale artisanal electronics in Italy, and people take it more seriously here than they do in any other country. And it's not an accident that Arduino and Genuino are a big deal here, and that kind of suits the local situation. I mean, it suits the Italian model of kind of small-scale distributed consortia of development groups. I mean, that's the way that like the Italian fashion business is run, and Italian retail is run like that, and the slow food movement's rather like that. Arduino, Genuino, and these open source guys are actually organized a lot like the slow food movement and seem to take a lot of cues from them. So we find that of intense interest because we're the globalisti of Torino, and we're like, just students of the city and friends of the culture here. So that's my presentation. And now I'm going to turn it over to the Jasmina of Casa Jasmina, who's going to describe some of the things that we're doing here in this city.
English? Yes. I speak in English, Italiano. I just checked this, but English. Italiano?
English, yes, English.
Can we find her slides
Usually we
here?
speak like him. Okay, so Bruce is gonna run the pictures, and I'm gonna do. I'm going back to the basics, huh? So we're gonna do something what's really concrete happening and what we are really doing here in Torino, and it is Casa Jasmina, which yes has my name because I have this idea. It was a completely private and innocent idea. 2 years ago, when Bruce and I decided that we should have we were in a rented flat and we're like temporary, and all of a sudden we said, why don't we have like a flat of our own? Why should we have, we're old enough now, children are out of house, why shouldn't we have a really different kind of stuff? Different, like we were free to start from scratch, and usually when you're young you inherit something, you don't have the means, the time to make a house of your dreams really, but when you're old actually you can do much better. So I said, why don't, and we don't have much money, that's also a very good case, So I said, I found this flat, and it was in the Fab Lab, and it was in the Viaggio, Bruce said it's an abandoned building, and it has Fab Lab, and it has a toolbox for working, and the Officina Arduino. And there was this abandoned flat, which is also, it is a building from 1919, very beautiful, and But the other people who came in there, they're basically retrofitting it, you know, and it's made by Porquedo. And I found this flat, but only rats and pigeons were there. So we went there, and we decided to spend the night there. You know, it was winter also. And we were living there with the rats. That night was really cold. It didn't have windows, you know? But it did have Wi-Fi, excellent Wi-Fi music coming from other officinati, you know. So I said, look, this is ideal. You know, we have all these young people, geniuses living here, working here, you know, around us, and we should like do this house, which is we invented from the scratch, you know, we will do it. And that for some reason, for legal reasons actually, we couldn't really invest our private money because it's supposed to be demolished. But of course in Italy, it will never be demolished because it costs more than this. So, you know, so at that point Massimo Banzi said, you know, it's a great idea, you know, why don't we do it anyway? And we can make it like a, you know, Internet of Things, home of the future. It can be bed and breakfast. Our geeks can sleep here. So we said, yeah, well, let's do it. And we made like 2 years idea of, well, let's start. Probably will fail, you know. But anyway, we managed to start from scratch, do it like this. And what happens after 2 years, or jump now to the 2 years, because now we just expired those 2 years, it really has become a big success. And I must say that the success is somehow, we sometimes say we don't really earn it, we don't deserve it, because we don't have many things inside. Except that I mean, we don't have the Internet of Things inside, not so many. But the success lays in the fact that it's a real home for real people, okay? And that I call it a smart home, yes, but for even smarter people. And it's not for consumers, it's not for clients, it's not for users. I hate those words. It's for people who live there. And mostly what I discovered is it should be really for people who spend most of the time there, and that's women and children and little people. Those people need IoT much more than, let's say, people. I don't want it to be a science fiction house of the future. You know, I mean, we have great science fiction ideas, but they never work. They're expensive. You know, you don't like them. And then what I discovered after let's say, a couple of months doing the thing, you know, Internet of Things, and Casa Jasmina, that was my name, it was the idea of Massimo Banzi, and I was really proud and privileged, but I discovered that other than having this imposter syndrome, because I'm not a designer, I'm not a geek, but I'm an early adapter, and I like new ideas, you know, and I'm brave, because this is an equal shame, I would say, more than brave, because it's not really exactly an idea that sounds in the beginning something workable, you know, because, but what I discovered is that 99% of the people around me were men. Now, it sounds like crazy, but it is so, and especially in Italy, you know, and it's very much like that, but in Italy it's even worse. And I felt like it doesn't go, you know, my collaborators are really brilliant young people, but they're all men. They call themselves Jasmini. They're half my age, you know. They listen to me as if I'm their mom, but there is something wrong about it. Men don't discover that as easily as women do, and there is something missing. And if you speak about future, you cannot exclude 50% or more of the population, you know. So there is no future of the Internet of Things if you don't have women in them. And then I started speaking to women from the field, meaning expert women on Internet of Things, and also other women, activist women. What does it mean for them? How can we make something that I call Internet of Women Things? So I wrote a manifesto, you know, and I spoke to many women, and I finally came up with this idea for this manifesto of 7 approaches, at least 7. And I put them down, and I wrote this manifesto, and we translated it also into Italian, and we put it online, and I will now explain to you a little bit what are these 7 points. The first point that we came was critical design, critical Internet of Things approach to it. Because when I was speaking to women who are geeks and who design stuff and who are like in that kind of business, you know, they're highly successful women, they told me that the first thing that they were aware of, that the things were designed by men, and they were not designed for women and by, like, if you think through history, you know, if you think about cars, how designed they were for men, why were women always considered bad drivers? It was because the cars, when I got my first car, I couldn't see the beginning and the end of the car, and I'm not a small woman, you know. The same thing goes in Internet of Things, that many of the things that are designed are actually some kind of idea that women would not like. For example, if you think about all the devices of Internet of Things designed for the control of the body, and especially if you think about mothers and babies and how you have this design that you put on a baby with a newborn, and then you hear the beating of the heart wherever you are, whatever you do. Now, no sane woman would like that, because you're already obsessed with the beating of the heart of a baby. What you need at this point is not to hear it all the time, but to hear it when, and this is one of the things, for example, that men excel in design, you know, this extra. The second approach is, I'm speaking because it's a long story, and Bruce can run through the story there, but it's, the second approach is that women, as I said before, are 99% of men. So really, physically, they're not present. So what they were telling me, that sometimes it's really salutary to bring women from the corridor sometimes. Bring your wives, bring your, your girlfriend, bring somebody, the cleaning women who are around, just to make them present. And as De Biasi said the other day in Bologna, that it is a research that proved true that if you have workshops or any positive, let's say, Internet of Things positive conclusions or upshots, it's notice that if women are present, even if they're like not majority, it's always the case that if the women are present, you have better results, And so positive inclusion. Let's make it will never be work. And I've been in a conference where there were 99% men. There was only 2 women. One was a secretary, the other was a mom of a guy who organized the conference, And when they were saying how brava I was because I had these ideas, I said, but you could have asked your wives, It's not because I'm an expert I have that, And this is like one of the second approach that we must make. The third one is positive seclusion. Now, the positive seclusion is something that I know because I'm a hardcore feminist, and I know and I founded women's studies in Belgrade. I'm in literature, and I realized that if you have only one man in the room, that women are very often held back, and they don't say their things because they think in a different way. They prefer to work collectively. They're less assured of their opinions, so they want to check their opinions with each other. Well, men, it's a cultural thing, it cannot be changed in 1 year and goodwill. Men want to be personal, want to speak in their own name. They don't have this, and then they're louder. It's like, so if you and I spoke to women, and these women were designers. They said that they have this camaraderie atmosphere with men designing objects. So they prefer to do it. Men don't feel the difference that if there is no women inside, but they do feel the difference. It's like going to a shop with cars and you see all the nudes in the repair shops, and if a woman enters a repair shop car with all the nudes and sex things around, women would notice it. Men wouldn't. It's an extreme paradigm, but I'm just telling you that there is a difference. So when you let women alone, or in the majority work, they invent other things, they do. And then, the first thing that I came through when I was speaking to women about what do they think about Internet of Things, the first, and the presence of it, because it's pervasive, it's already here, so why not think about how we can take control of it? And as Bruce said, they already have taken control of our daily life. Now we should, try not to be managed by the big societies, but try to make our own way of dealing with Internet of Things. The first thing they said is that they needed to be protected from the Internet of Things, meaning they wanted the isolation from the Internet of Things. So they were thinking about how can we have a place in the home, which is, of course, in the future, we must be many more objects of Internet. How we have a place which will not be controlled by Internet? Security, And speaking about Snowden and all the problems we had with the leaks and espionage in these years, I think this kind of attitude is very, very healthy, and very important. So in Casa Jasmina, we have our own cloud, because when you say connected to, the first question would be connected to what? Because people don't want to be connected to Google App and blah, blah, blah. They want to be connected between themselves. I want to be connected to my daughter, but I want to my husband, to my friends, but I don't want to be connected to everybody all the time. So basically, this is one of the things that I will give you afterwards the examples, because we had workshops of the real object that we invented. Then there is another approach, I'm just skipping now, which is just do it approach. Samantha Cristoforetti was a guest of Casa Jasmina, and when we were speaking about Internet of Things and women in technology, she admitted that she was like really the only woman, again, in the room. She's the woman astronaut who spent most time in outer space in the world, So, being Italian, she said she had a hard time, that like when she was a kid, her dad was always buying cool stuff to her brother and not to herself. And she said, this is her recipe. I never wanted to go through my life in this field of man by thinking that I'm a woman, posing it as a question. Just do it and never mention it. And this sometimes, works. Sometimes just don't. When somebody addresses you, it worked for my mother, who was in the mail business, it worked for me, so sometimes it works. Then the design fiction. This is another approach, design fiction. Women are much more, let's say, creative when it comes to objects that don't exist, that should be, let's say, sometimes they're even useless objects. Now, if you think about home, home is a place where you don't have to have only objects that you use and that they're perfect. Home is a space of your privacy, a space where you should feel good. Now, women often think in a way like, I don't want a completely new thing, I want something that, like it's my grandmother's chandelier, and why shouldn't we retrofit a grandmother's chandelier with some kind of Internet of Things, so it can be switched instead of just with one button. And they also think in a way which is out of box, maybe because they were never in the box, they never had a box their own. So they think out of box, they think about impossible things, like I myself, I very often have said to my brilliant guys, around me, I told them like, I said, maybe I'm stupid, but couldn't we have something like this? And then I say something stupid, like a screen which is not material. And they said, of course it's possible. But being engineers, being geeks, they think in the box. But when somebody tells them something which is out of box, and even stupid, they think in a different way. So they make me a screen which is not material. Now this is a thing that women have more freedom of imagination when they speak about their private space. And then the last thing, it's the seventh thing that I mentioned, was the cultural differences. We were much more aware that cultural differences exist between cities, between classes, between races, and in order to make a thing work, in order to make an object a successful object or a space a successful space, you have to bear that in mind, because not the best solution, not the best idea will be successful because it's the best. We can recognize it's the best. It will be a success because it's culturally accepted. And I always give this example that like you Italian, you have perfect tradition of coffee, like making coffee. And you wouldn't like a machine to make a lousy coffee, okay? There is really some tradition in that. We don't want to have a machine which makes bread like the Americans do. In America, everybody wants to press the button. No selling server would like a button to make your bread, because you learn it when you're 5 years old to make bread with your own hands. There are things that you want to be automatized, but there are things that you don't want to be. Then women also want very often to have very simple things like one button only. Bruce explained it. So you don't want to have these complicated things of pushing 7 buttons, in order to move one thing, And this is also, I think, the key to the success to make it functional and to make it acceptable. I'm not speaking of being commercial, because what we're doing here is a movement. We're actually a movement. We're connected to the makers movement. We have the Fab Lab. Basically, it's not yet cheap. But what we're thinking here is that, you are a generation that comes from, you young people, because I have a daughter of your age, you're from the generation that came out of crisis. So, a new kitchen, for example, that we have in Casa Jasmina costs like 20 to 30,000 euros if you want to have that. And what I'm thinking here is why, and if you buy IKEA, it costs much less, but then everybody has an IKEA kitchen. It's a little bit boring, What we're thinking here is to personalize something which is a maker's or IKEA. You take something in your flat, you buy it cheap, like we do in Casa Jasmina, and then you start like making it smarter, working on it on your own, you know, making it prettier, retrofitting it, and at that point you have quality with beauty, with, and as Bruce calls it, it's open source lusso. Because, you know, we want to have some luxury and beauty and also useless objects. What is the line between lusso and necessity? It's a very thin line, you know. And what is the line between, where do you feel well, you know, about pleasure? Do you really enjoy the stuff that you imagine? This is also a very interesting field that we are researching in Casa Jasmina, because we are living there every day. We're making parties, we're making food, we're inviting people. They're sleeping on our beds, sitting on our uncomfortable chairs very often. They tell us, and all our guests who are there, you know, now it's a real B&B. It's not like the people who come to see Sindon are going to Shroud to stay.
Actually, it is. When it was a museum, yes.
Yeah, it was a museum because we had a Share Festival, Electronic Art Festival. It was this year. Where Bruce and I, Bruce is a curator and a jury member, we are actually doing this festival for many years, and this year it was domotica art, you know, because what is art? You know, think about how you get bored at seeing the same painting all your life, you know, because you inherit it, maybe very valuable, you don't even dare to take it off the wall. Instead, you have electronic art, which is sedition art, for example. It's a gallery where you buy stuff, very famous painters like, you know, or artists for $15. And you have your collection online, and you put a frame, and you can, you know, change it. You can move it around the house. You know, it is a really, you can put in a key your art and move it from room to room. You know, you can really, your space can move with you. Your flat can move with you. And now Casa Jasmina has become, I'm not going to say, how do you say,
It's like a platform.
Platform, yes, because it's not, it's material. The first one is in Torino, and we are very proud that it's in Torino. But there, people are really interested in having Casa Jasmina in other countries like Germany, US, and UK, you know. And at this point, being a platform and being like this idea that we scrape and we live through, it would be, our idea is that we always tell them that it has to be a local house, of the local space, personalized by the people who live there in their own experiment. And as Bruce mentioned, if we have the success, now we have success in museums. Museums are inviting us. I think we have become a circus, more than Casa Jasmina. We're moving throughout the world with our platform and imagining it in different places, sometimes really museums. You know, we're also getting prizes. But that's not our victory condition. Our victory conditions would be that really it becomes a Casa Gerta, a Casa Jane, you know, whatever the local name of the local person, preferably a woman or more than one, you know, and that they make it happen. And this is, I think I said all the necessary things. And, you know, in Casa Jasmina, it's important to say that we have also children's room and that we have children guests. And when they come inside the house, now this is very interesting because, you know, if you don't have children, you have children around you, you see happen. These children are, it's their post-something generation. They don't care about computer as we imagine that they care, and we don't let them use the computer. At least my Italian friends do that. These children don't want to use the computers. They want to make stuff, you know. So I saw them in the children's room, and you let them with all these IoT things around, if there are any, and the normal toys, but they're bored with those. What they like is a maker's chair, you know, which will dismember, a 2-year-old kid, who can speak. He dismembered the chair, a maker's chair, and put it back together like a, you know, constructed it. I couldn't do it. You know, I failed the test because I put the legs up instead of down. You know, I don't have that money. So these kids are they're not even they're natives, as we call them, but they're post-internet kids, I would say, you know. They're Internet of Things kids, you know, and they take it for granted, the internet, but they don't want to use it as their servant. I think they're what's the word, Bruce? You are good in neurologism.
Kind of
post about it.
I mean, they're just, you know, sort of digital natives 3.0 there. I mean, you know, you can see in this picture here that we have a zoetrope from the, you know, Turin's National Museum of Cinema.
Yeah.
And that's, for children, that is by far the most attractive media toy. Because they've never seen one. They're not really impressed by the Furby, which is, a doll that can talk, or other kinds of screens. I mean, they've grown up with screens and they consider them boring. A screen is something that your parents look at instead of looking at you. Whereas this Victorian optical toy, the Zoetrone, that you spin, is like an analog GIF machine, and they've never seen such a thing. They take a lot of interest. People who react to Casa Jasmina, many people seem to think that it's an art project. When I see that, because we get some press attention, and it seems to be mostly from design magazines or from the art world, and it isn't really meant to be an art project, but the fact that we have a house there has actually opened up our scene socially very widely. Because people who would not go to a factory or a fab lab will nevertheless visit a house. I mean, they're willing to go. So we were able to get Samantha Cristoforetti to visit us, not because it was a fab lab, but because we just asked her to be a judge for our art festival in our house. And we were able to get Paola Antonelli from the New York Museum of Modern Art. She's their design curator, to also show up for the same event. And they've seen a lot of fab labs, and they're very aware of electronics. And, the astronaut is an engineer, and Paola put the Arduino in the New York Museum of Modern Art. I mean, she accepted it. But they had never seen a house, a house of maker culture, and they weren't impressed by it, but they were just really happy and supportive to see it.
Yeah, and now we have a workshop of architects from building a hammam in Casa Jasmina that was also there. They actually came there.
Right.
And you see,
architects will come into a house because a house is something architects build. You wouldn't see many architects showing up just to use, small electronic components. So it's actually broadening our contacts in the Torino creative community. And, I think it's going to, it will expand. And, as Jasmina says, our victory tradition is to have other maker homes in other cities, but we're not going to build them. And this one is the first, and it may be one of the best.
And it's also like, I didn't give you the examples, for example, of the things we did invent, because I never remember the time, But for example, is there a good night lamp?
Yeah, it's the good night lamp.
Like, I'll show you one of the objects we didn't do it, it's okay, so you see this lamp. Why is it Internet of Things or Internet of Everything lamp? It is because, you see, it relates to what I was telling this time. So you have a big lamp, it's a lamp, a house, it's a house. And like I have it here in Torino, I put it next to myself. And then the other one, the smaller one, which is connected to the internet, is in Spain, where my daughter is now, where she's living and working. So what happens, instead of sending her SMS, which are always invasive, like I know I'm a daughter and I'm a mother, and I know you should do it to each other, The moment when I wake up and I see my lamp is light is on it, it means that she's alive out there and she's also up, So it's this kind of connection that we have without really necessity to talk and to to be invasive in each other's privacy. Because I always think if she's not alive, she thinks I'm not alive. Especially, but this is like a wonderful example that's already designed. The one that I'm really keen on, it's yet to be designed, is in this workshop, Internet of Things, which now we have a Facebook profile now, we have a Tumblr, we have and we go from all the world kicking it with our ideas. But this was my idea. Think about laundry. We're always hiding the places where you do your laundry. For example, in Torino, you can't put it on the terrace because it's on the outside, and by law you can't do it only if you have a balcony behind, And at home, it's not nice to see your laundry, so you have to, do a special room and that. But I was thinking, women spend a lot of money for the laundry. Even if it's underwear, why should we be ashamed of it? Why should we be ashamed of putting your laundry line somewhere in a nice place, you know, like in the middle of your corridor, designed well. We don't have the laundry line, but we have the place. Anyway, when we got this new flat, there are nice niches, you know, in Torino flats. Very often have nice niches. And instead of putting the books in this position, you can do like a nice laundry line, which is Internet of Things, so you can move it, you know, you can put the heat, things that have lights in it, you know, and put your stuff like there, you know. Why not? You know, and this is like one of these ideas that sounds crazy, but it works. You know? my designers are ready to make it. And what else? I mean, there are many objects, but I won't go now. I think we used our time. But while I was speaking about Internet of Women things, I think it's an idea that got a lot of tracking, and I didn't even know that I went into a field which was personally to me dear. But I think that it's an important issue because you see, Internet of Things right now is a field of power and money. And it's already being conquered by the big companies. But whenever a field is a field of power and money, it's mostly dominated by men. And when women arrive there, it's already usually goes down. So instead of designing it and concluding it as it is, only with people from big companies and only for mainstream males, you know, I think we should try and make it our own. And as I said before, I think there is no future without the internet, without it, but without women making it.
That's true, and to go a little farther, eventually it does end up as cat toys. You wouldn't think that the cats end up running everything, but that's actually the way technology develops. You know, the marvels of the past become really just, you know, throwaway background devices. Really, they're dogs. Really, they really are reduced to a cat toy status eventually. But you know, if you're interested in this, it's handy that we have this experimental space in Torino. And if you actually make things, or you have some kind of object, or you're interested in maker furniture, and you'd like to install something in Casa Jasmina, we would look on that kindly too. We have all kinds of little projects in there, and you know, things we're working on, ideas. You know, we have lots of ideas. We have more ideas for things that we can fulfill. And you know, it's kind of a unique space actually. It looks really different. It just has lots of maker-style, open-source furniture and just odd things you wouldn't see anywhere else in the world. And
it's not open calls.
Yeah, you know, and we have open calls. You can follow us on casajasmina.arduino.cc. We're quite friendly and open. You know, we're big friends of the Politecnico here. We're like on your side. You know, we love student projects, and Arduino is all about educators.
And open source. It's very important that we're working open source because it really generates quality. It's not a political thing. We're not speaking about political. Even Microsoft open source.
But it's also good.
They realize that those platforms are better.
It's good to get past a little.
And they don't have the brand thing that you know, protecting rights of the brand thing that Juan Carlos is keen on. You know, I mean, like when you're open source, you can innovate it. You don't have to protect for 20 years. You know? So things really move in that sense. And you're really welcome to come to follow us and to see it. And if you have any ideas, you know, we have workshops. We have workshops for girls, for children, for, you know, we're going to Maker's Fair Rome. We will have a house of our own. They're giving us a house of where we reproduce Casa Jasmina. So if we have a hope for that to make things happen different than Casa Jasmina. We're not stuck to what we have. We're doing it like, it's a thing really on the run, you know, and it changes all the time.
That's the story. Do you have questions?
Okay, any questions for Bruce or Jasmine? Or comment?
Yeah, comment if I can. So when I think about Internet of Things in home, I always think that I always thought that that there are things that are very unuseful, and I would not like to have them in my home. Instead, what Casa Jasmina is different because what I think that you do is that you put feelings in the objects that you design. And this is great in my opinion because the things that you develop are useful in the sense that they are not thought, as you said before, for customers or users, but for people. because they meet their needs, but mostly their things. Like the land is the great example of this. So thank you for doing this.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, we have few, as I said, we have few things, but at least those work. The ones that don't work, they come out. You know. But I would really be happy to have any ideas that you come across, because only through talking, you know, and living them. If you have any ideas, just.
So really, living it is more important.
Yes, yes.
It's very helpful to actually be in a space. And you can see that when people come into it, they behave as if it's a house, rather than, even though there's a factory downstairs and an office next door. We've had some very good conversations there. I mean, it has places to sleep, it has a kitchen, you can eat there, you know.
They're all coming, you know. Whenever we go to Kazayas, you know, it's full. It's full of people sleeping, sitting there, because, you know, it has this thinking about doing the, you know, they're asking us, can I leave, can I do something for you, can I leave something here, you know, it's like more of a place where, and even though it's not a normal, in many ways it's not a normal house, you know. Sometimes I miss an armchair, a comfortable armchair, I say, please guys, you know, we're sitting with these maker chairs which are not comfortable, you know, I don't. You know, sometimes but then we have to bring in artigiani who know how to make it, because we don't want anything, nothing is 100% of the source, we know that, you know, but we don't want to be less than 70% of the source. So we don't want to introduce stuff which is like a comfortable armchair, which is, you know, just jazzy. So sometimes it's not very comfortable, I know. We didn't have like tende, you know, we didn't have any tende.
Well, you know, they're experiments. Everybody who goes there thinks, oh, this is a house, I'm going to make some furniture. And it's very hard to design comfortable furniture. And anybody can make a chair out of plywood, they're all terrible. I mean, plywood's really a pretty bad material for chairs, unless you're Charles and Ray Eaves. And even then you have to work at it. But you know, they enjoy doing it, and they you know, it is a kind of place where you can invent things and try them. It's a test lab. And to say that we have nothing there is not true. I mean, actually, a lot of stuff passes through Kazayas, you know. And I'm the curator, and you know, I'm always worried about just so many things appearing in it that you can't even move. So periodically, we have to just go in and refresh the whole place. It's 2 years old now. It has a full-time staff. There's 5 guys for Jasmini. Six Jasmini. You know, it's kind of a completed project in some ways. I think it will go on, but I actually think that what I'm going to try to do now is actually produce more things in it. But, you know, my personal role ought to be trying to make more objects or to encourage more production. And, you know, I think that's what Torino is actually pretty good at. I mean, they're not just a hospitality place with very nice hotels. It's a manufacturing city where people know how to make, sell, and distribute objects. So I want to encourage that, and I think probably the best way to do it is to try to do more of it myself. I'm just, rather than being the curator, I'm going to try to become more of a maker, you know, in months to come. I have some ideas for projects that I plan to work on. And I don't think I would ever have made that decision if I didn't have the house there. Right? And the fact that it exists, that it's more than talk or a book, enables us to do stuff. And if you want to drop by, it would enable you to do things too. It is a fab lab, and they teach people how to make stuff there all the time.
We have students from Politecnico, right? We're doing their research and their papers in the very first year. You know, it's quite amazing.
Yeah,
and they were women.
The architect of this place, you know, Giovanni Antonio Porquedo, all his papers are here at the Politecnico. He was a Politecnico graduate, the guy who built this structure. The greatest architect of reinforced concrete in Italy. And that's why they couldn't knock the place down. It's just so solid. It's very difficult to demolish it. It used to be a forge. So it's typical of Torino that we're trying to find new ways to live in these retrofitted Fiat industrial structures. And this is a very interesting example of that. That's what architects notice when they come in. It's like, oh, you're in an old car factory, and it's an Internet of Things house. Yeah, it is. That's super Turinese. It's very typical of the life of the city. Any other questions or comments? You could drop by and have a Prosecco sometime.
Oh yeah, Prosecco is the official drink of Casa Jasmina and Lavazza. Not Lavazza, we have a smart machine, a smart Lavazza machine, which is looks like a spying machine, a coffee machine that spies you. Ha ha! There you go.
Any other question? If not, let's thank Jasmina.